Dear learners, Namaskar, and I am Dr. Chunnu Prasad, and the topic of your social science lesson is governance at the state level. Let me tell you very briefly the objective of this lesson. We will be discuss on methods of appointment, power and position of the governor, relationship between the governor and the chief minister. Chief minister is the real head of the state government and his or her power and the role, composition and powers of the State Council of Ministers, composition and powers and function of the state legislature, organization and jurisdiction of the High Court as well as the working of the subordinate courts, need of a government at the state level and understand how it impacts citizen and their daily life. Learners, as you know that India is a federation and hence has government at two levels, one at the state level and another at the union level. Every citizen is related to and influenced by the government functioning at both the levels. We all are guided by the laws made by the state and union legislatures as well as administered by both the government and get justice from court at both the levels. All the three branches of government, that is executive, legislature and judiciary, exist and function at both the levels. Learners, you have studied in the lesson already constitutional values and the Indian political system, that India has a parliamentary form of government. Both at the state and union level, it has institutions and processes like any other parliamentary system in the world. At the state level, there is a governor in whom the executive powers of the state are vested by the constitution, but the governor acts as a nominal head and the real executive powers are exercised by the council of ministers headed by the chief minister of the state. The governor of a state are appointed by the president of India. In order to become a governor, a person must have minimum qualification. He or she must be a citizen of India, must be at least 35 years of old and should not hold any office of profit during his or her tenure. If a person is a member of either house of the parliament or the legislature of a state or a member of the council of ministers at the national or the state level and is appointed as governor, then he or she shall have resigned from the post. A governor is appointed for a term of 5 years, but normally holds office during the pleasure of the president. Now, the pleasure of the president means that the governor may be removed by the president even before the expiry of his or her term. He or she may also resign earlier. However, in reality, while appointing or removing the governor, the president goes by the advice of the prime minister. The powers of the governor are conferred by the Constitution of India. The governor performs his or her functions effectively as a head of a particular state. Now, the powers of the governor can be broadly categorized as the executive powers, legislative powers, financial powers, judicial powers and discretionary powers. Let us discuss one by one. First of all, let us discuss about the executive power of the governor. The Constitution of India vests the entire executive power of the state in the governor, who performs various functions according to the advice of the council of ministers, with the chief minister as its head. Now, he or she appoints the chief minister and other members of the council of ministers. He or she also appoints persons on important posts such as the chairperson and members of the State Public Service Commission, State Election Commission, State Finance Commission and the Advocate General, judges of the courts other than the high courts. He or she is consulted when the judges of the state high court are appointed by the president, but in practice the governor's power are only formal. Governor appoints only that person as chief minister of the state who is the leader of the party in majority in the legislative assembly. All the members of the council of ministers are appointed only on the advice of the chief minister. All other appointments are made and the executive functions are performed by governor exactly as per the advice of the Council of Ministers. Then comes the legislative power. The governor is an inseparable part of the state legislature and has been given certain legislative powers. He or she has the right to summon and prorogue the state legislature and can dissolve the state legislative assembly. He or she addresses the state legislative assembly or the joint session of the two houses of the legislature. He or she also nominates 1/6 of the members of the legislative council if the state has a bicameral legislature. Once again, in real practice, the governor does all this on the recommendation of the Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister. A bill passed by the state legislature becomes a law or act only when the governor gives assent to it. Now, the third type of power is the financial power, and you must have read in the newspaper or heard that every year the budget is presented in the legislature for its approval. In fact, the budget is the annual financial statement of the state prepared and presented by the state finance minister before the state legislature on behalf of the governor. Moreover, no money bill can be introduced in the state legislature without the recommendation of the governor. He or she also has control over the state contingency funds. Then comes the discretionary power, which is one of the most important power of the governor. The governor acts on advice of the Council of Ministers of the state. This means that in actual the governor has no power, but according to the constitution, under special circumstances, he or she may act without the advice of the Council of Ministers. Such power which are exercised by the governor on his or her own are called discretionary powers. Firstly, if no single political party or coalition of parties has won a clear majority in the legislative assembly, he or she can exercise his or her discretion in inviting a person to be appointed as a chief minister. Secondly, the governor acts as a link between the center and the state. He or she can reserve the bill passed by the state legislature for the consideration of the President of India. And thirdly, if he or she thinks that the government of the state is not functioning according to the constitution, then can report to the president, and in that case under article 356, the president rule can be imposed. The state council ministers is removed and the state legislature is dissolved or put under suspension. During such emergency, the governor rules on behalf of the president. Now, we will discuss on what is the relation between the governor and the Council of Ministers. You know that the executive of the state consists of the governor, the chief minister and the Council of Ministers. Normally, the governor exercises all his or her power on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, and we know that when the chief minister is sworn in, the governor simply performs a formal duty. He or she invites the leader of the majority in the state legislative assembly to be sworn in as the chief minister. The members of the Council of Ministers are also appointed by the governor on the recommendation of the chief minister. The majority can consist of members of legislative assembly belonging to only one party or a group of parties or a group of parties and independents. However, when there is no clear majority in the house to elect one candidate as its leader, the governor can exercise his or her discretionary power. Similarly, although theoretically the minister hold their offices during the pleasure of the governor, in practice the chief minister and the Council of Ministers remain in office till they enjoy the support of the majority in legislative assembly. The governor can dismiss them only when the president rule is imposed. Now, the chief minister is required to communicate to the governor all the decisions of the Council of Ministers. The governor may call for necessary information related to the state administration. If a minister individually takes a decision, the governor may ask the chief minister to place such a matter for consideration of the Council of Ministers. It is true that the governor is a nominal head and the real powers are exercised by the Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister. But it will not be correct to say that the governor is just a constitutional or ceremonial head. He or she can exercise his or her powers effectively under certain circumstances, especially when there is a political instability in the state. Since he or she is a link between the central and the state, he or she becomes very effective if the central government sends direction to the state government, and these discretionary powers make the governor to act as a real executive in particular circumstances. Now, let us discuss about the Chief Minister and the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers with the Chief Minister as its head functions as the real executive, and you are very much aware as how are the Chief Minister and other members of the Council of Ministers appointed by the governor. Their term of office is for 5 years, but they remain in office till they enjoy the support of the majority in the assembly. If a person who is appointed as the Chief Minister or a minister is not a member of the state legislature, he or she has to become a member of any of the two houses within 6 months of his or her appointment. The portfolios or the different ministries are located to the ministers by the governor on the advice of the Chief Minister. Now, the Chief Minister is the real executive head of the state. It is he or she who formulates the policies and guides the Council of Ministers to implement those policies. He or she is the most powerful functionary, especially when his or her political party has an absolute majority in the legislative assembly. But if he or she heads a coalition government, his or her role gets restricted by the pull and pressure of other partners of the coalition. At times, Chief Minister is pressurized by independent members of Legislative Assembly, that is MLAs, if the majority of the coalition and depends upon their favor in the house is very thin. Learners, we know that every state in India has its own legislature. Let us understand how the state legislatures are constituted. In some of the states, the legislature is bicameral, that is has two houses. In most of the states, it is unicameral, that is has only one house. The governor is an integral part of the state legislature. The unicameral legislature has the legislative assembly, and the bicameral legislature has the legislative assembly and the legislative councils. At present, only legislative assembly is the lower house and the legislature council is called the upper house. Bihar, Jammu and Kashmir, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh have bicameral legislatures, and the remaining 24 states have unicameral legislatures. As per constitution permission, the legislative assembly shall not have more than 500 members and not less than 60 members. However, very small states like Goa, Sikkim and Mizoram have been allowed to have less than 60 members. Now, the legislative assembly is an elected body. The members of the legislative assembly are elected by the people based on principle of universal adult franchise. Certain qualifications have been prescribed by the constitution for being elected as an MLA, and the candidate must be a citizen of India, must have attained the age of 25 years, must have his or her name in the voter list and should not hold any office of profit and should not be a government servant. Dear learners, do you know what is the meaning of universal adult franchise? All adults, men or women who have completed the age of 18 years and above have the right to vote and participate in the electoral process without any discrimination based on race, caste, religion, place of birth or sex. It is very essential that such adults, citizens should get their name enrolled in the voter list. Now, the tenure of the legislature assembly, that is Vidhan Sabha, is of 5 years. However, the governor may dissolve the assembly earlier on the advice of the chief minister. Similarly, the assembly may be suspended or dissolved. The president rule is imposed in the state. During a national emergency, the Parliament may extend the term of Legislative Assembly for a period not exceeding 1 year at a time. We must also know about the upper house of the state legislature, that is the Legislative Council, or we call it Vidhan Parishad. It shall not have more than 1/3 of the total membership of the state legislative assembly, but not less than 40. The members of the Legislative Council are partly elected indirectly and partly nominated. If you see the composition of the Legislative Council, its 1/3 members are elected by the members of local bodies, that is municipalities, district boards and other local bodies in the state. Another 1/3 members are elected by the members of the Legislative Assembly. 1/12 members are elected by the electoral consisting of graduates of the state of not less than 3 years standing. Another 1/12 are elected by the electorate consisting of teachers having teaching experience of at least 3 years in the educational institution without the state, but these institutions must not be lower in standard than secondary school, and the remaining 1/6 member are nominated by the governor of the state. Now, the Vidhan Parishad is a permanent house and hence it is not dissolved. Members are elected, nominated for a period of 6 years. 1/3 of its members retire every 2 years. The retiring members are eligible for re-election. Now, the qualification for becoming members of the Legislative Council are similar to those for the members of the Legislative Assembly. However, the minimum age in case of Legislative Assembly is 25 years, whereas for the Council it is 30 years. The state legislature meet at least twice a year and the interval between 2 sessions cannot be more than 6 months. The members of Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad elect their representative, presiding officers as well as speaker and deputy speaker, the chairman and deputy chairman. The business of the two houses is conducted by their respective presiding officers, who also maintain discipline and order in the house. Now, what is various functions of a state legislature? The first important function is the legislative functions. The assembly has the sole right to legislate. All the laws must be passed by it. Where there is a bicameral legislature, the ordinary bill can be introduced in any of the houses. A bill passed by the Legislative Assembly is sent to the Legislative Council, which has to pass it or to return it with the recommendation to the Legislative Assembly. If the Legislature Assembly pass that bill, once again either with recommendation of the Council or without those, it shall be deemed to have been passed by both the houses. As regards money bill, this can be introduced only in the Legislative Assembly. After the Assembly pass the money bill, it goes to the Legislative Council, which has to pass it or return the bill to the Assembly with the recommendation within 14 days of the receipt of the bill. Even if the Assembly rejects the recommendation of the Council, it will be deemed to have been passed by both the houses. Once the bill is passed by the legislature, it is sent to the governor for his or her assent, and he or she cannot withhold the assent on the money bill, but can also send or can reserve any of the bill for consideration by the President. Now, the second important function is control over the executive. The state legislature keeps control over the executive. The Council of Ministers is responsible to Vidhan Sabha collectively, and the Council of Ministers remain in office so long as to enjoys the confidence of the House. The Council of Ministers is removed if the Vidhan Sabha adopts a motion of no confidence against it. Moreover, the state legislature keeps checks on the government by asking questions and to supplementary questions, moving adjournment motions and calling attention notice. The executive is answerable to the legislature. The third function is the electoral function. All the elected members of the Legislative Assembly are the members of the Electoral College for the election of the President of India. The members of the Vidhan Sabha also elect the members of the Rajya Sabha from their respective states. Moreover, they elect 1/3 member of legislative council of their own state. All these functions are the electoral function of the state legislative assembly. Another important function is the functions related to constitutional amendments. There are certain constitutional amendments that require the support of a special majority of each house of the parliament, as well as ratification by not less than half of the states when the state legislature ratify the amendments. Hence, the members of the state legislative assembly plays an important role while ratifying any amendment. Now, we will discuss what is the impact of state government on citizens and their daily life. Learners, have you ever realized how the policies and program of the state government, which are often debated in the state legislature, impact our daily lives? All states run many schemes and projects which impact all of us directly or indirectly. Different welfare functions or projects are implemented by the state government from time to time. Anytime states also adopt union government welfare schemes and implement them. For example, efforts are being made for education of out of school children through residential bridge courses. These efforts have enabled these children to join mainstream schools. The educational practices followed include education through play and use of computer aided learning processes. Similarly, many other programs are implemented by the state government. Now, we will move to the High Court and the subordinate courts. Learners, you must have heard about the High Court of your state. According to the Constitution, there has to be a High Court for every state. A High Court may have more than one state under its jurisdiction. We have an example of Guwahati High Court that acts as a common High Court for the states of Assam, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur and Tripura. Mostly the union territories come under the jurisdiction of the High Court of their neighboring states. Now, what is the composition of the High Court? Each High Court has a Chief Justice and judges. The number of judges in each High Court is determined by the President from time to time. There is no uniformity or fixed number of judges in all the High Courts. The Chief Justice and judges of High Courts are appointed by the President. For appointment of the Chief Justice of the High Court, the President consults the Chief Justice of Supreme Court, whereas for the judges, he or she also consult the Chief Justice of the concerned High Court. Now, the Governor of the concerned state is also consulted for appointment of the judges of the High Court. Judges can be transferred from one High Court to another by the President on the advice of the Chief Justice of India. In order to be appointed as a judge of a High Court, the person concerned should possess the following qualification. What are these following qualifications? He or she should be a citizen of India, should have held a judicial office in the territory of India for at least 10 years, or should have been an advocate in one or more High Court for at least 10 years continuously without break. Now, the judges of High Court hold office till they attain the age of 65 years. However, a Chief Justice or a judge can resign. A judge can be removed from office through an impeachment process by Parliament on ground of proved misbehavior or incapacity. The Chief Justice and judges are paid salaries and are also entitled to such privileges and allowances as determined by Parliament from time to time. After retirement, they may practice as advocate either in Supreme Court or in any High Courts except the High Court in which they have served as judge. Now, what is the jurisdiction of the High Court? The jurisdiction of the High Court extends up to the territorial limits of the concerned states or union territories. The High Court has original and appellate jurisdiction. Under the original jurisdiction, certain types of cases may be brought directly before a High Court. The High Court exercises original jurisdiction for the enforcement of fundamental rights and other legal rights. In this respect, High Courts have the power to issue writs. These writs go a long way in protecting the rights of the individual against encroachment by the legislature, the executive or any other authority. The High Court may also hear election petitions under its original jurisdiction challenging election of a member of state legislature. Writs are the directions or orders which are issued by the Supreme Court or the High Courts for the enforcement of fundamental rights. Now, the courts thus are the grantors of these rights. Under appellate jurisdiction, High Court hear appeals against the judgment of the subordinate courts at the district level. In civil cases, an appeal may be filed before the High Court against the judgment of a district judge. In criminal matters, appeal may be made before a High Court against the judgment of a session court, whereas the sentence of the imprisonment exceeds 7 years. Death sentence awarded by a lower court has to be confirmed by the High Court. Now, the High Court exercise powers of control and superintendence over all subordinate courts falling within its jurisdiction. The High Court is a court of record. Hence, all the subordinate courts follow the judgment of the High Court. High Courts may also punish for contempt or disrespect of the court. Now, in every state there are subordinate court at district level and the subdivisional levels. There is a district and session judge in each district. Under him or her, there is a hierarchy of judicial officers. The organization and working of subordinate courts in India are more or less uniform throughout the country. These subordinate courts hear civil case, criminal case. It will be better to know about the civil, criminal and revenue cases. Now, what is civil case? The civil case filed in civil court which pertains to disputes between two or more persons regarding property, breach of agreement or contract, divorce or disputes between landlords and tenants are called civil cases. All these cases are settled by civil courts. In such civil cases, the court does not award any punishment as violation of law is not involved. Now, the criminal cases. Such cases related to thief, robbery, rape, pickpocketing, physical murder, etc. These cases are filed in the criminal court by the police on behalf of the state against the accused. In such cases, if the court finds the accused guilty, he or she is awarded punishment. So, learners, do you know that the revenue court and board of revenue exist at the state level? Under it are the courts of commissioner, collector, tehsildar and assistant tehsildars. The board of revenue hears the final appeals against all the lower revenue courts under it. All states do not have a board of revenue. Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat and Maharashtra have revenue tribunals. Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir have financial commissioner instead of the board. Now, dear learners, in the end, let us recapitulate and revise the information that we have gained. India is a federal system. That is why it has governments or the governments both at the union level and at the state level. At both the level, government are organized and function on the basis of principles of the parliamentary system. The governor is the head of the state. He or she is appointed by the President of India. Constitutionally, he or she has extensive executive, legislative, financial and discretionary powers. But in practice, he or she exercise those powers except the discretionary power on the advice of the Council of Ministers. The real executive in the state is the Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister. Most of the state in India have unicameral legislature, while some of them have bicameral legislature. The two houses of the state legislature are Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council. The states with unicameral legislature have only the Legislative Assembly, and the primary function of the state legislature is lawmaking. In addition to this, the state legislative assembly also controls the Council of Ministers and has electors functions also. High Court are at the top of the state level judiciary. These courts have original and appellate jurisdiction. Besides the High Court, there are subordinate courts, This is how the government at the state level functions. Thank you.